I think this is going to be an encouraging message because, listen, we're all struggling with failure. Every last one of us in this room. So, okay, three stories about Peter. First of all, Peter's failure of walking on water. Okay, now later on, I'm going to kind of give Peter a pass on this one, but we do got to talk about it, all right? He walks on water. So let me tell you this story very, very briefly if you're not familiar with this. So Jesus has been teaching all day, and he goes up to the mountain to pray. He's around the Sea of Galilee. He sends his disciples in a boat across the Sea of Galilee. So a storm kicks up, which is normal. This is a topography. It's in a hole, and the wind whips up. And so it's nighttime. He sees them straining at the oars and the wind and the waves. And so what does Jesus do? He goes out and walks to them, okay? Weird. So he's walking on the water out to the boat. They're a little bit freaked out because haven't seen that before, all right? And they're thinking, that's a ghost. It's a ghost. Oh, my goodness, it's a ghost. No, Jesus says, it's me. And then what does Peter do? The heroic Peter. If it's really you, Lord, command me to walk to you on the water. Who says that? Okay? That's weird. So what does Jesus say? Sure, come on, Peter. And then Peter gets out of the boat. Now listen, those of you that don't have boats and you haven't been on the water, maybe you just don't recognize the enormity of what was taking place. He's in a boat, in a storm. The boat is doing this, okay? If you've ever been in a boat, when the water's rough, it's not pleasant. How do you even get out of the boat without hurting yourself? Because you got to throw one leg over. The boat's doing this. Just saying. Okay, enough. And can you imagine throwing that one leg over and that there's something solid and the boat's still doing this, okay? Wind, waves, then you throw the other leg out. You're hanging on to the edge of the boat, okay? He's looking probably at his buddies. His buddies, they got that deer in the headlight look. What are you doing? But he's not sinking. I mean, I don't know if Jesus said, come on, let go, Pete, let's go. And so he does. He lets go. He doesn't sink. And he's starting to walk towards Jesus. But then, come on, this is surreal. He's looking around going, what am I doing? Which I think is pretty normal, okay? The wind, the waves. And what happens? He takes his eyes off Jesus. Boom, he goes down. And then at that moment, okay, he is panic-stricken. Best prayer in the Bible, I think, my opinion, okay? He says this, Lord, save me. Best prayer ever, all right? What does Jesus do? Saves him. Walks over to him, picks him up. Then we walk back to the boat. We get back in the boat, and then Jesus goes, Peter, why'd you doubt? Why'd you doubt? Because we could still be walking on water. All right. Second failure. This is a little bit more intense. Peter is, in Matthew 16, he resists Jesus going to Jerusalem. He's resisting the entire plan of the gospel. He's resisting Jesus going to the cross. Jesus is trying to explain to his disciples, he says, listen, I'm going to go to Jerusalem. I'm going to be handed over to the religious leaders, and they're going to whip me and beat me and pummel me, and it's going to be ugly, and they're going to crucify me, which is horrific. As the disciples are listening to this, they're going to kill me. 3 days later, I'm going to rise from the dead. And they didn't understand what that meant. This disturbed Peter so much, he grabs Jesus, come here, and he rebukes the creator of the universe. That's kind of an epic fail. This forbidden, Lord, this will never happen to you. And what does Jesus say? Get behind me, Satan. Ouch. Get behind me. You're a stumbling block to me. You're setting your mind on man's interest, not God's interest. That's a pretty major fail. But then we get to his worst one. So Peter denies Jesus 3 times. Some of you know that. So the last meal they had together, Jesus predicts this. He says, Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times. And Peter, in his heroic, passionate fashion, I'll never deny you. I'll die for you. And he meant every word of it. He meant every word of it. Later on, they're in the Garden of Gethsemane, and here comes the crowd with swords and torches, and they're ready to arrest Jesus. And the first thing he does, Peter gets a sword out, tries to lop off someone's head. Of course, he's not a swordsman. He's a fisherman. So he just gets the ear, okay? And Jesus is like, put your sword away. And he puts the sword away like, what's going on, Jesus? And Jesus allows himself to be arrested and bound, and Peter's confused. He and John follow in the darkness. They take Jesus to the high priest, the courtyard of the high priest, and they're following along in the courtyard. Poor Peter's just confused. Why is Jesus letting this happen? And people are talking to Peter, hey, you're Galilean. You got an accent. You're one of his disciples. No, I'm not. And he goes, kind of moves around to somebody other group. Have I seen you in the garden? You look familiar. No, I'm not one of his disciples. And then once, even this little servant girl. Hey, I think you're one of Jesus' disciples. Third time. No, I'm not. And just then the rooster crows. And one of the Gospels. See, this betrayal is recorded in all 4 Gospels. How'd you like your failures for the world to see? Anyway, when the rooster crows, Peter, it hit him. He remembered what Jesus said. He turns and he looks at Jesus, and Jesus heard the rooster too. And he turned and looked at Peter, and their eyes met. Oh my gosh, what that would have felt like. And Peter, it broke him. It says he left, he ran away, weeping bitterly. I'm sure thinking that he'll never recover from that failure. All right, there you go. Now what can we learn from that? Number 1, here we go. First of all, failure is part of the learning journey following Jesus. It is part of the learning journey. Now we see this with all of Jesus' disciples. Jesus didn't call them to follow because they were perfect, because they weren't. He called them to be learners. See, this is essentially what a disciple is. A disciple is a learner. Go and make disciples, Jesus said, but you're going to make learners, people who don't follow me, but they learn from me. We're learners. Learning is all about trial and error, success and failure, victory and defeat. Where there is no failure, there is no genuine learning. I mean, we understand that with little babies are learning to walk. I mean, 10 months, 12 months, 13 months, whenever you started walking, okay? I mean, right? We see that. It's all about failure. They get up and they're like that, you know. They take 1 step, 2